And we're back now, ready to talk movies we actually like.
Yay!
Huzzah! So yep, same rules as the worst of list. We only talk about only movies we reviewed or qualified for the list. We're gonna take it in turns. It's gonna be Sarah, Muhan, and me. And I know we're about 5 months late to this, but we're getting it done now, so better late than never. With that being said, I know we're gonna talk about this movie for a while, so let's jump right in. Sarah, what is your number 10? Or
Well,
what are your honorable mentions and then your number 10?
okay, so I got three honorable mentions. So I guess my unofficial number 13 would be 3,000 Years of Longing, a beautiful story about the art and importance of storytelling. Uh, it was terribly mismarketed, but it's a beautiful film. Uh, my unofficial number 12 is Bros, which is the I think the hardest I laughed in a movie theater last year. So it uh, I I really enjoyed that. And my unofficial number 11 is Cyrano, because I love supporting musicals, especially when they have talented performers like Peter Dinklage. So those are my honorable mentions.
And what's your number 10?
The Black Phone, uh,
Really? Okay.
which I know is is kind of unusual or not really talked about, but I it's kind of my brand of horror. That's the amount of scary that I can handle. And I liked that it was a period piece. I thought the um the young actors who played the main kid characters did a really good job. It was very suspenseful, and what you want from a horror film is to get a little thrill, a little scare. So I very much enjoyed that.
I do like modern day Ethan Hawke, just kind of doing whatever the hell he wants.
He,
Um,
Oh yeah, no,
he
his
was a
his comeback's
very
been interesting.
yeah,
he was a
and
very effective villain.
yeah, he like I know he was very opposed to being villains for a long time. Now he's kind of said, fuck it, and now he's just villains everywhere, which I'm
Yeah.
totally
Realizing how
cool with.
much fun it is.
Ethan Hawke is having a great time as villain characters, and I'm all for it. So
I really appreciate Ethan Hawke's whole comeback arc. Like he was gone
yeah,
for a while, and now he's just like I don't know. He's also a super wholesome dude. I like him a lot. So all right. Um, so my honorable mentions, I guess, first.
yeah.
Okay. So I would say Triangle of Sadness.
Mm-hmm.
Because what a fucking movie, man.
That's
What
a
a
movie that
fucking
knows how to movie.
that movie was a trip, and it has a very fun take on satire, and
Yeah.
just like the little touches of just simple, stupid, funny comedy. Um, like the whole rainstorm happening outside, like just this hurricane of a storm coming up against their windows, and just like seeing the like one of the workers on the ship's hand come up with a squeegee and just like squeegee the window in the middle of this storm.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I and of
I was a
course
little
the toilet that sings heavy metal before vomiting everywhere. Just like holy shit. Never seen anything like that. But not enough to make it on the top 10, but definitely a unique experience that is worth checking out.
yes.
Banshees of Inisherin.
Really?
I'm still not entirely sure how to feel about this movie. It just left
Fair.
me so fucking sad afterwards.
That's valid.
It is soul destroying. It's a movie about loneliness and just destroyed friendships that has absolutely no redemption arc. It's just a descent into fucking bleakness. And just like it's so fucking hopeless. But it's also one of the most human and accurate movies I've ever seen about the concept of loneliness and aging. And yeah, it's baffling. I still don't have a star rating for it. Like I don't know what I would rate it. The Whale really impacted me deeply emotionally. You can go watch a review for that if you want to know more about that, but it's not top 10 material for me. I would have thought it would have been any other year, but there was just so much good stuff. Nope. fantastic. Still beaten out by the other choices on my top 10. I couldn't justify squeezing it in up there. And then Bodies, because God, I fucking love that movie. What a fantastic, stupid, straight take parody of horror movies and like toxic, artificial, like leftist posturing.
I heard about it. I didn't see it.
I highly recommend it. It's very good. Also, anything with Rachel Sennett, like Rachel Sennett is just like, my God, I'm in love with that woman.
Do you love her or Florence Pugh more?
Oh, Florence Pugh.
Okay.
Rachel Sennett's too young to really be my thing, but I do love her like as a performer. I would marry the fuck out of Florence Pugh. I would treat her so right. Like she's just charming. If you have a chance, look up a video of her cooking.
I've seen that. Yeah. It's adorable.
It is so cute. Like also she's a fucking beast. The way she puts together a fucking martini is she's like, all right, so you put some ice in the shaker and you pour some vodka over that ice, and then you rub a lemon peel around the rim and you pour the vodka into the glass. That's a martini. And I'm like, that's just vodka. That's like you LaCroix of vodka, and like she drinks it throughout the rest of it and you just watch it disappear. You're like, dude. But also when she messes up, she makes these amazing faces that are just like it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I love her so much. But anyway, Florence Pugh is not on this list at all. She's just on my mind because I love her. But yeah, my number 10 for the year. Those are my 5 runner-ups. My number 10 for the year is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. What can you even say about this movie? If you've heard about this movie, you know how fucking good it is. They managed to bring an existential quandary as the main theme of this film, and also somehow bring in the idea of family and abandonment and adopted families with Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And it's a simple movie, but it's very well executed. And the animation style, they decided to adopt something more along the lines of like Spider-Verse with it, and it pays off beautifully. Like this movie has so much style. It's so good with its comedic timing. It's so charming, and it's so effective in its core messaging that it's impossible not to love. Like it's the best kids movie I've seen in a couple of years at least.
Yeah.
So 100% fantastic. Belongs on the list.
Yeah. Excellent movie. We'll talk more about it a little bit later. So yeah, my runner-ups. This is one of those years where I have been actively modifying this list since last night and literally up to while you were just talking. So just constantly moving stuff around. So my 2 runner-ups are also Nope, because I think it's an excellent movie. But it's just there's just ones I liked better. That being said, it's an excellent like monster movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
And really atmospheric and really creative, and definitely has that depth that you get out of Jordan Peele movies. The Whale is also a runner-up for me. It was originally on my list, but it got bumped down by some of the ones on this list. Similar reasons, like definitely a very interesting experience, very intense experience. You and I had a very long, interesting conversation about it in our review of it. I think it's one of our better reviews of last year. But that being said, it's also those movies I have no desire to ever watch this again.
Yeah.
No, that was one of the reviews. Sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
I was just saying that the Whale is an expertly crafted film. It left enough of an impression that I don't need to see it again. I'd say the Whale and Nope would also be runners up for me, but I was trying to keep it short. Sorry.
It is definitely a Darren Aronofsky movie. You can say that. But as a longtime fan of Darren Aronofsky, I don't know. There was something about it. I feel like the review we did for that is up there with like the review we did for Everything Everywhere and The Father. Like we just got into some real shit. And
we aired out some.
I think, any movie that resonates that deeply, I think deserves at least some recognition. And I understand there's some concerns that people have with like that phobia and all that jazz. And like, I understand. But just because it's about a dude who is overweight, because like deadly overweight to the point where it's killing him, and he's deeply depressed and he's got all these problems and he's very unhappy and he's isolated, doesn't mean it's about you if you're overweight.
Yeah.
There are people out there like this. There are people out there with depression this bad. I am someone who has been suffering from depression that has gotten this bad over the past 3 years. And for someone to act like this movie is fat phobic just because it's a portrayal of that kind of person, I feel like they're taking it as being representative when it's not intended to be. It's a specific character who's in that situation. And I strongly take issue with anyone who wants to act like the kind of stuff that he's going through is not real, because that's what I deal with. And I'm not gonna fucking put up with that kind of invalidation from someone just because, of something like that. It bothers me.
Yeah, fair. So that being said, my number 10 is She Said. Which movie you, Sarah, you and I reviewed. Also, it's also a movie that gave me COVID, so that must be why it's a little lower on the list.
Sorry, but you'll hear more about this movie later.
Yeah, that was a movie where I saw with a bunch of like teenagers in the background. I'm pretty sure one of them gave me COVID. So that was fun.
Sorry.
Coughing right
fault.
over your head.
Like, why are you apologizing? It was your fault.
Because I really wanted this movie to be eligible for this list, so I feel
I made the choice to go see it, Sarah. Don't take responsibility for that.
Okay.
So that being said, yeah, She Said is an excellent like journalist movie. Probably the best I've seen since Spotlight. Way back when. It's not as good as Spotlight. Very few movies in the genre are. That being said, as far as a movie that just goes into the Harvey Weinstein, like basically just crime spree. This one does do an excellent job of portraying the issue of honestly, it's just issue around women's safety in this industry in general, particularly in this genre, in this industry. Although obviously the issues branch much wider than that. With some excellently, what was that face? But
All right.
Anyway, but yeah, like the use of like actual recordings and evidence of Harvey Weinstein, the kind of conversation we had, are very effective. It is very effectively done. It does give you positively to root for. It tells the story very accurately and really does a good job of just emphasizing just how disgusting this whole, not just what was happened, but how effectively it was covered up and how difficult it was to actually get any information about it.
How embedded in the system these practices were or are.
Yeah, and they're still being used today. So it's definitely a case of, yeah, the problem is definitely not solved, but at least one bastard is down. Now that's not, again, doesn't make up for the decades of like systematic industry abuse that has happened before and is still going on. But fuck Harvey Weinstein.
Yes,
of course.
That's my number 10. So Sarah, you're number 9.
This is a case where I had a really good auditorium viewing experience, and it's my new favorite Christmas movie. Violent Night is my number 9.
Violent Night's a lot of fun.
Yes, it's a lot of fun. I'm not putting it here because I think it's a masterpiece. It's here because I just had a great time watching this, and it's ridiculous, and there's so much blood, and it is just a good time. It makes me happy.
David Harbour's clearly having a blast in that movie.
Yes.
Everyone's like, John Leguizamo is also having a blast in that fucking movie. The homage
He's doing scenery so well.
The realistic homage to Home Alone, I got a big laugh at.
Yes.
Yeah, Violent Night's movie I had a fucking blast with when I saw it around Christmas.
Yes.
Muha, you're number 9.
Rose.
All right,
Nice.
Let's hear it.
I mean, again, another review that got intense and deep, and it's the review where I came out, I think. So
Yeah.
Yeah. To the audience.
Mazel tov.
But yeah, Bros was a movie that I could have just been a dumb rom-com. It could have been like much more crass and crude and not classy. But it managed to not only be a great send-up of queer culture in general, and also directly critical of Billy Eichner himself. Like he is definitely mining his own mistakes in that movie for humor and owning them. But also shockingly poignant at points. It not only goes into the whole side of things where you have, rom-com stuff, where you dive into the characters' experiences and how they've affected them, but here you also have queer experience, where even when it's two gay men, anyone who has had to hide part of themselves like that, and force themselves to be something that they're not, for so long. There is a particular moment in the movie where Eichner kind of breaks and lets out his feelings about the things he's experienced over his life and the things that he was not allowed to be and how he forced himself to be something else. And that scene fucking broke me. As a trans person, like in that one scene, I think that you can basically understand what unites all different brands of queer people across the spectrum, in terms of their experiences, like the things that we can relate to and the kind of things we're trying to fight in the effort to freely be ourselves and live the lives that we want to be and not be forced to fit into a box of, whatever society defines masculinity or femininity as. Like, it's, aside from being a solid rom-com that is genuinely funny and genuinely sweet and genuinely cute and fun, it hits the things that would help people empathize with the gay experience and consequently the queer experience so incredibly well. And I was honestly shocked at how good the movie was. I did not expect to be fucking ugly crying during that movie. So yeah, blown away, really shocked. And I loved it. I loved it. Absolutely recommend more people see it because it's just a really good movie.
I laughed so hard at that movie, which is why it's in my honorable mentions. That was the hardest I laughed at a movie all last year. It is very smart and very funny.
It didn't make my list, but I remember you and I had a really good conversation about it. And I do like it did get a good laugh out of me. And I really respect it for what it is. And definitely what it was going for. And I think it achieved it. Yeah. My number 9 definitely follows the rule of cool entry this year, which is like, I acknowledge it's not one of the best movies of last year, but I had such great fucking time with it that I'm going to throw it on there anyway. My number 9 is Prey. Which is a movie I had a great fucking time with. It turns out the only way to make a good Predator movie is just put them in different time periods and just see what fucking happens. It really is that simple. But the action is consistently like well choreographed. The designs are spectacular. The climax is fucking great. The Native American representation is also really cool to see, and the way they kind of incorporate the inherent silliness of the Predator as a franchise, and just like, at the end of the day, we just need cool badass people from different time periods just fight a giant alien monster, and that's really all you fucking need. While also making it like there's some commentary about like colonization and stuff like that, as you should for like a movie that stars Native American people. But that being said, for just kind of like with Violent Night, just a blast of a fucking time, and really the Predator movie I've been wanting to see for a long goddamn time. So I hope they just do this for the future and just put the Predator in different time periods, and that's honestly all this franchise ever needed to be. You don't need to expand with stupid, pointless lore. Nobody cares where the Predator is from. Nobody cares how the world really works. Just like have the Predator fight a ninja.
That does sound awesome.
Predator versus Samurai.
Yes, fuck yeah, I want to see that. That was the best scene in Predators, was when they have the weird ass like samurai fight with the Yakuza guy for no reason. It was
He's
stupid, over the
Japanese.
top, and I loved it.
He's Japanese, must be samurai, right? It makes sense. We're white. We don't need to understand these things.
Sure, it was stupid as fuck, but I kind of like that movie too.
I still haven't seen it. I don't know.
Um,
Adrian Brody in a Predator movie just felt kind of a weird placement for me.
it was weird, but it kind of worked, at least for me. Mostly because, like,
All right.
I'm just gonna kind of lean into how silly and stupid this is.
I'll add it to my list of thousands of movies I've been meaning to see.
Likewise. But yeah, just like Predator fighting a bear. Yeah, it's there. Like Predator fighting against like just a fucking tomahawk on a string. Yeah, it's there. Best boy, like best dog in the world. Yeah, it's there.
Turn it into like the whole shark phenomenon, like shark versus raptor, shark versus tornado, just Predator versus cruise ship. I don't know. Like,
Fuck yeah, I'd watch
fucking
that.
go for it. Go nuts. Go nuts.
That would.
But there's one fucking retired Marine who's gonna fucking bring it all together after they slaughter all the old, boring, rich white people.
But yeah, really, it's that simple. Just put the Predator against different like badasses across history, and that's your franchise. I don't know why it's need to be so fucking difficult. It makes it look. That's why I like Prey. It makes it look so fucking simple. It makes it look effortless, and I respect that. So
Right on.
yeah, Sarah, you were number 8.
It's a movie that's already been discussed. But, I'm going to mention it again. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
Mm.
Beautiful and touching and surprisingly philosophical, effectively philosophical for a children's movie. I appreciated that they weren't just catering to the kids, but to the adults who may be in the audience. And I was very touched watching it. I had a good time watching it. I grew to really care more about this ancillary character from the Shrek franchise, and the scenes with this a very effective epitomation of death.
Oh man,
was
Right.
legitimately
Yeah.
was legitimately nerve-wracking. Like, I was scared for this animated
Yeah.
anthropomorphic cat. Truly. It's
like whenever death popped up, you actually got chills, and you're like, dude, this should not be this effective. What the fuck?
Yeah, and I thought it was very sweet when was his heartbeat was racing, and
Yeah, the anxiety attack scene.
Pietro calms him down by just laying near him, not judging him, not saying anything, just comforted him, but by being there. I thought that was very touching. This whole movie is beautifully crafted and paced and written and voice acted, and it is fun and touching. I loved it.
Fun fact about that anxiety scene. What they show Perito do with like the head on the chest, like head on their chest or head on their stomach, is a real technique that therapy dogs are taught to calm down from
That makes a
anxiety
lot
attacks.
of sense.
Yeah, it's like the idea of like
abandoned therapy dog.
so like it's like little just like little like sensory weight to like just like reconnect to the body.
Yeah. Oh,
Ah, nice.
all right.
So Muha, you're number 8.
Glass Onion.
All right, I'm surprised to see this low, but all right.
Me too.
It's just so much fun. It's just such a fun movie. It's just front to back a good time, and it's so cleverly written and well acted, and the twist is great, and somehow they carry over the themes from the first one while still executing them perfectly in a different way. And honestly, I will never ever get. I don't think any of us will get over, especially if you saw the early showings like me and Michael did.
Yeah.
I saw it on
Over the-
Thanksgiving Day after dinner.
Exactly. So if you got to see it in November, not in December when everyone else did, You got to experience it at the height of Elon Musk's self-destructing after the Twitter purchase. And there's no way in hell they could have timed that because they can't see the future. But the serendipitous release date of this film, just with everything that you were seeing from Elon Musk and the like, just the collapse of his mythos, how just amplified the idiocy of Edward Norton's character in this movie tenfold. Like all of the Elon Musk-esque shit that was clearly meant to target that kind of billionaire just immediately became about Elon Musk just because he was the figurehead for that movement, for that demographic at that time. Still is, considering. But yeah, holy shit, man.
Yeah.
It was great. And of course, I love how Benoit Blanc, this time around, like the whole thing of the first movie is that at the first half of the movie, he's this mysterious character who's just kind of like serious and in charge. And it's when he gets in the car with Anna de Armas's character that he kind of lets that wall down and gets more casual, and you get to see that he's actually just kind of like a weird, goofy dude. And from the very start of Glass Onion, they're like, "What cat's out of the bag in that sense?" So let's just fucking have him be that same weird, eccentric genius.
Yep.
From the get-go. And God, I had such a good time in this movie. It was so much fun.
All right. And my number 8 is 3,000 Years of Longing.
Good.
I wanted to see that. I still haven't seen it.
That one is like the most egregious case of mismarking I think I might have ever seen.
Same.
Because like, yeah,
from the director of Mad Max.
And like bombastic visuals, boom, boom, boom. Look at all the colors, look at all the kooky creatures, and look at all those things.
It's being called Aladdin for adults. It's not that.
The movie is much more of a slow-paced, methodical movie about storytelling, and about the themes of wanting to be seen, heard, and understood, and the frustration of not being able to feel that, and feeling literally trapped with that feeling for centuries. And it's not a perfect movie. Like the transition to the third act is kind of clunky. But that being said, like what it's trying to do, what it's trying to say, and how it's presenting that story is very, very interesting to me. Because most of it is told through narrated flashbacks, essentially. With some intercuts between Idris Elba and was it Uma Thurman? Was it
Tilda Swinton?
Tilda Swinton. Yeah.
Tilda Swinton. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but that being said, like this is a movie that brings up just a unique feeling of loneliness, of longing, for lack of a better term. And it does kind of capture that isolation you feel when you're trying to reach out to the world and you're just not getting anything back from it. And how there's almost a desire to almost like push it, to force it. I mean, you like convince somebody to like feel that way for you, then you can actually connect with it, but it's not actually based on anything real. So it's a movie that really struck a chord with me, and it's one of those movies I really sat with a long time after I watched it. And it still sits with me pretty well now, even though it is a very unconventional film, and I definitely understand it will not connect with everybody, but it sure as hell connected with me, especially in that period of time in my life when I saw it.
Okay. And it has gorgeous cinematography and the colors pop. It's just a beautiful story about storytelling and the importance of storytelling.
It does feel like George Miller just tricked a studio into funding a big budget indie film.
That's basically what it is.
It's like, yeah, I made Mad Max Fury Road for you, so let me do this weird shit that I want to do. And then we can go, and then I'll make Furiosa. Fine, whatever. But at first I want to make this little indie, like this little small film. That's what it is. It's a small scope film. It never really strives for anything bigger. It doesn't need to. It works perfectly well as a small little insulated film with some great actors and some really gorgeous visuals and a really compelling heart.
Yes.
That I really respect about it. So that is my number 8. Sarah, what is your number 7?
I'm pretty sure this is not on either of your lists. I from your review, I got the sense that I enjoyed this more than you did. My number 7 is The Menu. I
Eh.
I thought it was a fun, dark comedy satire about class, and as somebody who has worked in customer service, I guess you could say this movie resonated with me.
Mm.
In that regard, it has an amazing cast. I like how it's structured with each course kind of being a different section propelling the story forward. I thought the way that Anya Taylor-Joy's character escaped was very clever and resourceful. And I watched it again a few months ago, and I still enjoyed it. So to me, it holds up.
Fair enough. I remember enjoying it fine. I just don't think it was as deep as I thought it was. I think what
Maybe not, but I feel like it accomplishes what it set out to.
Fair enough. All right, Muha, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is Babylon.
Okay, yeah. All right, go ahead.
Don't be so dismissive of what we like, Michael. Don't be an asshole. Jesus.
I said okay.
Sarah goes to the menu, and you're like, like fuck off. What the hell, man?
I came this close to putting Babylon on my worst stuff.
I feel
I
very
didn't mean it
judged
that
by
way,
you
but
right
I
now,
can see it
Michael.
being interpreted that way.
I feel very judged, dismissed in my taste.
Oh, like you're one to fucking talk.
That's what makes it funny.
Okay, tell us on
right.
on Babylon, Muha.
Babylon is such a sprawling personal epic, and it is such an interesting look into a period of time where the world was changing so quickly and an industry was changing with it. And it turns into this meta narrative that at the very end takes on shades of something like adaptation, where the movie becomes not only about itself, but it extrapolates itself into the fact that the movie is not just about life, but movies in general are about life. And we see our reflections in the movies that we see. And things that come and go in life, the things that the fortune you have, the good fortune you have. I'm currently in a moment where I'm having a very, very good moment in my career, but I'm very, very aware, thank you, that that's going to be temporary. I'm not going to be doing this well all the time or for the rest of my life. This is going to end. Same way that I had a very, like, an even better period of my career for a little while. It wasn't as high, but the growth was more intense and I had more intense support. And when that ended, it was kind of devastating. But at the same time, I knew it had to happen at some point. It couldn't stick on that high the whole time. And this is a movie about people who have gotten accustomed to that feel like they deserve that kind of thing and kind of get lost in that. And there's small things that are said in it about, you know, particularly near the end when you have the reporter lady what she says to Brad Pitt. You know, he calls her a cockroach. Yeah, he calls her a cockroach, and she says, "You know what's good about the cockroaches, though? We never are under the illusion that the house needs us to exist." And it's such an interesting take on the idea of fame and celebrity and ego and appreciating what you have and the ephemerality of it all. And on top of that, just manages to be this completely unhinged, like, roller coaster of a movie with these scenes that are just over the top and really funny in some ways, and have some really interesting references to the era. I also love that it represented the diversity of the era, because before the Hays Code was implemented, movies were actually really, really off the rails. There was a lot of really intense, mature stuff that was happening. There
They
was a
were much more
lot more
sexual
queer.
in the early
It was,
1930s.
yeah, there was a lot more sex. There was a lot more queer representation. There was direct queer representation. There was more violence. And there was a lot more hedonism. Like Hollywood was way more diverse than you would think. Just looking at the movies post Hays Code, you'd think it was just like, well-to-do white people who, were very dignified and classy, and you had, the tropes of whatever the hell, with masculinity and femininity. But before that, all those lines were much more blurred, and it wasn't so exclusive. The Hays Code was literally like Christian white supremacy erasing the culture of the other people who had entered that space. And Babylon chooses to represent some of that in the film. And I really appreciated that. Like, there's so much about the movie that I enjoyed. And I was never bored throughout the whole thing. I've seen the movie 3 times now, and I
Wow,
was
that's
never
a long
bored.
movie.
I know. And I was never bored for any of it. It's like, it was better the second time around than the first time. For a movie that's that long and just convoluted, it's surprisingly clean. It's surprisingly efficient storytelling, and it's a surprisingly effective storytelling too, once you know what to expect out of it. So also the motifs that continue through the movie, you will notice that certain motifs are dropped, from musical motifs to dialogue based motifs. The whole concept of I love you, I love you, I love you,
I
and
picked
how
up
that's
on
dropped.
that.
Yeah. And all the way down to near the end where he goes te amo, te amo, te amo. Like, it there is something connecting the idea of art reflecting life and life reflecting art in that movie. It's not just a movie about life, it's a movie about why movies are special and what they mean to us. And also just the cold predatory nature of that industry, or even just industries in general.
Big business.
I think it's a movie that's easy to brush off, but I also think that it is much more dense and textured and human than a lot of people might give it credit for. And the more I've thought about it, the more I liked it, and I had to put it above Glass Onion because it just has more to it.
Okay. When I got out of seeing Babylon, I remember thinking to myself, that movie made me want to watch Singing in the Rain again. And then as I walked from my movie theater to my bus station, I was just kind of humming the score from Babylon because it was so darn catchy.
Oh, it's an excellent score. Yeah, the soundtrack is fucking amazing.
It didn't work for me. No, I'm kidding.
I've already said it in this review, in this whole video, Michael. You don't have to keep reiterating. You are allowed to be wrong.
Sure, buddy. Anyway, moving on. My number 7. Now it's my time to talk about Puss in Boots.
All right.
So yeah, this movie I watched quite often actually after I saw it originally, because it's an easily rewatchable film. Especially when you're on drugs. Specifically weed.
Okay.
But anyway, no, this is a movie that really impressed me because I saw it first in the group, and it's one I've been slowly convincing anyone I can to go watch it, because it really is one I was like, no, hear me out. This is way better than it has any right to be.
Yes.
Because I saw it by myself, and I texted you and Chris in our little text chain that like, so this is kind of fucking great. And both of you were kind of like, really? Huh, well, that's interesting. And then I talked Chris into seeing it. Then he comes back and says, that was fucking amazing. You undersold how good that was. And then you saw it and you're like, that was one of the best fucking anime movies I've seen of all time. And it really is just that fucking good. And the more I've rewatched, I've caught like little moment, like little appreciated, like, okay, that's why their character death is so freaky, because he's the only character that breaks the fourth wall in like literally split-second frames, stuff like that. And I appreciate the designs. I appreciate the details. The animation is gorgeous. Use of color is fantastic. They made Goldilocks and the Three Bears like a sympathetic family you actually give a shit about. Like it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but like it definitely like succeeds more than it fails. And the realistic portrayals of anxiety attacks and how they can deal with them are like has really touched people in a big way. The design of its villains are fucking amazing. Like I said, Death in particular is one of the best designed villain and like antagonistic animated characters I've seen in a long goddamn time. Like legitimately low key terrifying for a kids movie.
Yes.
Kind of a vibe to it. And even like John Mulaney's Jack Horner is just kind of fun as just a almost like a parody of the sympathetic villain trope. It's like we're gonna make the most unsympathetic, deliberately evil bastard we can find that we can make, and we're just gonna milk the shit out of it.
He even admits that he's a sociopath.
Well, like even just like the down fact he's willing to shoot a puppy in the face with like no hesitation whatsoever. And you're the problem if you think there's something wrong with that. So like touches like that I really deeply appreciate. I think it's got a good heart, it's got a good message. And the action scenes are fucking great. The cinematography is fucking great. I like there's really almost nothing wrong with it. So yeah, Puss in Boots' Last Wish, way better than it's any right to be. To the point where it's kind of frustrating.
Yes.
All right. Number 6.
Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery.
All right.
For the reasons that Muha already touched on, and more. The cast, the plot twists, the costumes, the characterizations. You can tell everybody here is having fun. And how do I put this? Edward Norton did an effective job of being just a dumb person that I wanted to punch in the face. he got that characterization down pat. When I watched it for the second time with my partner, we corrected a few of his misused vocabulary words, so we wouldn't get dragged down to his intellectual level. It's I don't quite know how to express it. It's a smart mystery, modern day mystery that keeps you on your toes, but also has these amazing examples of selfish and idiotic characters at its core, and it kind of simultaneously glorifies them and makes fun of them. That's the I want more of these. I want more mysteries like these. I will watch any Fenwa Blanc mystery that we can get, because I thoroughly enjoyed this.
All right. Muha, number 6.
Men.
All right, let's hear it.
Sorry.
You know I like artsy, fucked up horror movies. The trailers for this movie don't do it justice. They do unveil the whole thing where, you know, everyone in the movie other than her and her dead boyfriend in the flashbacks have the same face. And at first it's like, what the fuck is this? But then you realize that it's a surreal take on these kinds of things. It is genuinely, it's nightmare logic, especially when the movie genuinely enters nightmare logic at the end. And in my original review for this, it's the best Silent Hill movie. None of the Silent Hill movies come this close to understanding what Silent Hill is about. Silent Hill is not about Pyramid Head. Silent Hill is not about cool monsters and weird gore. That's the surface level. Silent Hill has always been about personal demons and you being bombarded with them in a way that is surreal and makes you feel like you're kind of losing your mind, but you know you're not, but everyone's treating you like you are. It's like it's gaslighting you as it's putting you through this horrible shit. And Men takes this woman who was horrifically emotionally abused and physically at some point, and puts her into this situation where she's trying to escape from this situation that she's just been through, and puts you through all of the different ways in which misogyny manifests in society, from how it manifests in young boys and how they treat women, to how it manifests in dismissive authority figures, creepy dudes at the bar, random creepy dudes you see on the street, like all these different things that make women uncomfortable. This whole movie is just about that. And in amplifying all of this stuff and showing that all of these men are all the same man, it's all the same disease that's in their minds that's making them act this way and treat her like this, and how that culminates into like this crazy gaslighting lonely trip until she's alone with this shape-shifting monster version of it, which, spoiler alert to a point, but if you haven't seen the movie by this point, I'm hoping that's just enough of a spoiler to make you want to potentially give it a chance, because where it goes, where it takes that, this was one of those movies where I can see how some people, if it didn't land for them all the way through, they can look at the actual ending of it and just kind of dismiss it. But the way that it brings her trauma to life and connects all of it back to what she's actually trying to process, and the last line of the movie and how that lands and what that means in the context of all of that, and just how fucked up and twisted misogyny in general is in that context, and how that abuse has manifested. It's so real. It's so real, and it's so metaphorically like, oh, it is such an incredibly well-constructed, complex but simple metaphor for that kind of stuff. And where it goes at the very end of it, that last line still just hits. It hits so hard. It's so good. And it's so unique and strange. I just came off of watching Devs. I didn't watch Devs until last year. And watching Devs before going to see this, similar tone, similar pace, similar strangeness, but this had a point, and this is by far the most unsettling that Alex Garland has ever been. And I'm really, really hoping that he goes further. I really hope that he just digs deeper into being more extreme and more weird and have more pointed messages in his films. God, I want to see what he does next. So absolutely, 100%. Number 6.
All right. So number 6 for me is one I'm just gonna assume we're gonna talk about again later. And it's lower on my list just because they're just other experiences I like to return to more later on. My number 6 is Tar.
Oh, okay.
You're ready to pounce there. Like, you're talking about like judging other people on their choices.
That's the funny part, isn't it?
That's
why it's funny, Michael. It's the absurdity and the hypocrisy. It makes it funny.
Speaking of hypocrisy, Tar.
I love you.
I love you too.
Aw, see, told you, old married couple. It always works.
Anyway, Tar. So
What did you
Tar
call it?
is. We're
What
never
did you
gonna get
say?
through this.
Go on. Ah,
Yeah. So Tar is a very interesting character study. About Tar for lack of better. It's getting late. I'm tired. Basically, it's a very interesting deconstruction of not just this character of Tar, but also about the hypocrisy inherent in these kind of genres. Kind of like going back to what we said with the She Said, about the abuses that people in these kind of power positions tend to take against not just their own like colleagues and coworkers, but also impressionable young people that they take under their wing and then abuse and whatever they do. This one is very much the consequences of that. And this woman really facing the ramifications of years of abusing her power. Even if she is this brilliant composer as like she is, the fact that it doesn't mean that it means that she's still culpable for action. Like it doesn't make her invulnerable to what is this shit eating grin you're
I'm sorry. I muted to fart.
Okay.
I didn't want to. You were on such a roll, but it was still funny in my mind.
That's
so
a valid
I'm sorry.
point. All right, no worries. But really just examining those like systematic abuses of power and influence, while also digging into just like again how beautiful an artistic form creating music is and how involving, how passionate it can be. But how even so much is like, but how the actions of one composer produces beautiful music, like how it's really hard to separate the art from the artist in that capacity, because again, like it's hard to enjoy a piece of art when you know that the person who made it actively abused the power that it gave them, and that no one should be held above that. And I appreciate, and the sound design and the slow pacing and the acting all complement into a beautiful composition. That's my number 6. Sarah, number 5.
She Said.
Okay.
This resonated with me from a women's studies point of view, as also again as somebody who appreciates history, and agreed that it is the best journalism film that I've seen since Spotlight. With a little bit as heavy subject matter that is being investigated and reported. I liked the pacing of it and the underlying musical score, how it kept moving forward with this subtle haunting sense of urgency. I liked the chemistry between the two main lead supporters, Zoe Kazan, and I can't remember the other actress's name. I tried to support it as best I could. It wasn't in my local theater very long. I saw it twice. It was the only movie, or one of 2 movies last year that I saw in the theater more than once. We'll get to the other one later.
Mhm.
It may be a bit of a difficult watch for people, because of the subject matter of Harvey Weinstein, and the it's basically about the start of the Me Too movement. But I think it is a well-made film, and definitely worth a watch.
All right. Move on. Number 5.
You can unmute yourself now.
No, they're still farting.
I've been farting this whole time.
What did you eat? Garlic?
Nothing.
Chalupas.
It's this meditation. It's this medication.
Side effects.
No, I was kidding. I was the one fart. My number 5 is Marcel the Shell with the Shoes On.
Okay.
Yay.
What a fucking surprise! Like what? Like, I still remember when the videos first came out on the internet, and they were cute and silly, and it's like, okay, and then you're like, oh, there's a feature film being made from these videos that were on the internet a decade ago. Okay, I guess. They're directed by the same guy who directed those videos. Okay, I guess. Jenny Slate is back. Okay, I guess. And it's mismarketed, of course. But you go to watch it, and who the fuck expected that? Who the fuck expected a movie that was a meditation on family and growing up and innocence and death and mortality and like this existential, the zen of the final shot that like literally just left me sitting there with tears streaming down my face. Like I wow, what an unexpectedly powerful, beautiful, and innocent and simple and wholesome movie. Like really, I was really shocked. I'm still shocked by how good that movie is. And I even have the I have the special edition Blu-ray because I liked it that much. But I just I can't say, I don't really have much to say about it, but at the same time, I feel like I can't say enough. Just really a shockingly good movie. And it's beautiful and simple and effective. And I dare you to watch this and not just fall in love with this sweet little bean of a fucking weirdo. Like,
Yeah.
just like all the little musings that she has on the on like the nature of the world when she hits the internet. Like, just like they signed off their note with love and peace. Like, duh. Like, what who wants war? Like, well, what was it like? All right, well, off to battle, Marcel. Like, no, like I don't know. There's so much to love about that. There's so much to love about that movie, and it is surprisingly emotionally poignant and potent and beautiful. I was just stunned.
Yeah. All right. So my number 5, this is where I get to talk about Glass Onion. So this first off, I should point out that whodunits are the definition of my shit. So anytime you get a good whodunit,
whodunits?
Funny.
I'm sorry. It's late.
It's okay.
It's 11:11.
Yay, make a wish. But anyway, so Glass Onion, I think I just love, not just for its brilliant plot, but also its attention to detail. I love pretty much everything about it. I think it's one of the most cathartic endings of the year. At least for me personally. Just like
if only
like just the use of the song Mona Lisa and what that eventually leads up to. Everything about Edward Norton's character is fucking great. You can watch it over and over again and catch the little details and things you missed the first time around. I don't want to repeat.
It's so good to see Edward Norton again too. Like,
yeah,
it's been way too long since we got to enjoy him just having such a good time.
And Daniel Craig has such underrated comedic talents over the years, and I'm really happy to see him really get to flex those muscles here in a role. He is just chewing, like, you could tell he adores this role. Rian Johnson is a great director. I don't care what anybody says.
Anyone who says otherwise is fucking wrong.
And I know basically they said they'll keep making these as long as they get the good stories and they don't get tired of it. I know they got one
I'm down.
They have one more contractually obligated Netflix, and after that, who knows? But if they want to make more than that, I'd be more than happy to watch as many as they're willing to give me. This is exactly what the kind of movie that I love to death. I've watched it like 7 times now, give or take. Like, I adore everything about this movie. It's gorgeous. It's funny. I know some people say like, oh, the original Knives Out was better. I think I like both equally. They're just very different films with very different vibes.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think they've straight up said they want the third one to be like a different kind of feel too. So it's like, okay, so it's definitely a case each one's trying to be its own self-contained thing. And I respect that about it. It's a movie with a lot of big ideas, a lot of ambitions, and it's not afraid to do whatever the hell it wants. And I love Ryan Johnson for that.
Whodunits deserve better representation than Death on the Nile, and I'm glad
agree.
they're getting it. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so Sarah, number 4. Wait, where are we at? We're 4. We're 4, right?
4.
Okay, 4. Go ahead.
4.
Okay, I'm not going to talk about this as eloquently as you did, but my number 4 is Tar.
All right.
I briefly thought about putting it higher, but it's at this position because I appreciate the artistry involved in it, but there were a few parts that I didn't quite understand, particularly how it ends. There some aspects were a bit ambiguous to me of how much of what we just saw was in her head versus what actually happened.
No, it all happened.
Okay. But that's why it's just outside of my top 3. At the scene in the classroom that looks like it's a one take.
A large part of it is, yeah.
Yeah, you may not like everything that she's saying, but how the camera moves through the room, it is like I felt like I was a student in that class watching this brilliant and pompous person try to indoctrinate me to their way of thinking. Kate Blanchett gave a powerhouse performance. She embodies this character, a brilliant but very unlikable character. Which it's interesting that this beautiful, brilliant, successful, scheming, manipulative, lying person is the character that we're supposed to root for. That was a very interesting exercise in character study. It's a beautiful film, albeit a little long in parts. So, and you were much more articulate in your description of it earlier, but yeah, Tar is my number 4.
All right, cool. Muha, number 4.
I appreciate this letterboxed review of it that just says conservative lecturer destroys SJW college student.
Pretty much, yes.
My number 4 is also Tar.
All right.
Okay.
Tar is the kind of movie that rewards patient and attentive viewing. It rewards repeat viewings. I love a movie that demands my attention and rewards me for going to the theater and giving it all of my attention. And I have mixed feelings about the overall moral ambiguity of the film, because it does this thing where just because you have a protagonist doesn't mean, like, your protagonist doesn't have to be a good person. Your protagonist doesn't have to be likable. It's not necessarily the person that you have to be rooting for. You can just be watching them go through stuff. But from what I've seen, and it also kind of made me a little wary of Kate Blanchett, unfortunately, is that the intent of the movie is to actually keep it that ambiguous, and they outright say it. There are actually plenty of reviews on YouTube that talk about how this movie just destroys cancel culture and shows how terrible it is. But there are also plenty of reviews that go the complete opposite route and say that it shows, like, how it needs to happen sometimes. But of course, another thing that it showcases throughout the whole movie is the hypocrisy of everyone involved. Without spoiling too much, there are people who know what's going on and they don't do anything about it until it affects them directly. So in a way, the movie is saying, like, how innocent are they in this situation that they allowed it to keep going, as long as it would potentially be okay for them. And the kinds of things that she says, particularly in that conversation, in the college classroom, what was it? The narcissism of petty differences, something about that.
Mhm.
Where she basically like dismisses people feeling uncomfortable with, a composer being racist or something, and dismissing their body of work and just not connecting with it because of that. And she dismisses this Black student because of that, and basically dismisses his feelings of racial trauma and the fact that he can't interact with that kind of thing, and basically calls it like petty narcissism for him not to connect with the work of, I don't know, was it Chopin or something
Something like that.
But like that is
I think it
such
may
a
have been Bach.
maybe, but whatever composer it was, the main point is it is such a privileged stance to take, to be able to be a wealthy white person, successful, powerful, respected, and just dismiss the concerns of a Black kid about how he feels about these kinds of things. And unfortunately, weirdly, I haven't watched the interviews themselves. I need to, because I need to figure out like just how bad it is. But the impression that I've gotten is that the things that, for example, Kate Blanchett has said is essentially that she's rooting for Tar in that scene.
Mm.
So it's complicated in that way, but in the way that it kind of takes that even keeled approach towards it. The criticisms it has for the left and the kind of people who do, attack Tar are on a certain level very valid, but also Tar has everything that happens to her coming.
Yeah.
She fully deserves the outcome that she receives. And the personality that she has comes from that kind of insecurity of her upbringing, where she's come from, the artificiality of this artifice that she's built.
The high class
So
Lydia, as opposed to the
right,
low class Linda.
exactly. So, and there's so many subtle touches to how it works. There's so many things that the movie shows you instead of tells you and lets you figure out. And it's so subtle, and there's interesting responses from certain characters along the way. It's such a rich movie that rewards you paying attention and thinking about it, and gives you things to think about and different stances to take. And I think that the regardless of the artist's original intent in making the film, the fact that it is so open to interpretation from different aspects, to me, just says that they did such a good job portraying the situation as the complex situation that it is. It doesn't have an actual bias inherent in the film. It's showing how everyone is liable on a certain level, but that doesn't mean that anyone gets off the hook. So I don't know. I loved this movie. I loved it. I saw it like twice in the same week. Just absolutely, it is my kind of slow burn.
I was a little confused by the ending. Like, does she just abandon her family and start over?
She has no other choice.
Okay.
Her life is over. She has to start over. And they mentioned earlier in the movie, you know, China has a very strong industry going right now. And she's starting from the bottom again, but she's taking it just as seriously as she always does. So we'll see what that does for her. Or we won't, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
All right. So my number 4 is the Banshees of Inisherin.
Segues are weird.
Yeah. Because you and I definitely have the same takeaway. This movie is fucking bleak as hell. Unapologetically borderline cruel, for especially towards the third act of the film, where you just slowly and methodically watch a man's soul die in front of you. In what can best be described as a supervillain origin story.
Finally, like, this super sweet, wholesome guy just finally break and give up on being a good person.
Yeah, and it's legitimately heartbreaking to watch. Like, it starts out with like the dark humor you kind of expect from this director and from this cast, and it's still very funny. There's some lines that are legitimately like fucking hilarious, but as it goes on, especially that scene with the bread truck still makes me laugh.
Oh God. It's such a good joke.
That.
What was that? What was that, Sarah?
Colin Farrell's character wasn't expecting that reaction from.
Oh yeah, no, it's hilarious. And I love the cast. I love the direction. I think the cinematography is gorgeous. But yeah, when it gets bleak, it really holds nothing back. And how bleak it wants to get. And even though, like, I can't say I walked away, I also left the movie profoundly sad.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely more in the little jaded. I have to give it credit for how much it has stuck with me, like, months after I've seen it, and to even now still has a very strong emotional pull. And like, if a movie can do that, I know it's doing something right, even if it's not exactly a positive emotion. So just as a deconstruction of these characters and this world and the notion of relationships, how even like when they end, they can still be devastating regardless of the intention behind it. It's a fucking amazing film. And deserves all the credit it got. Yeah. So Banshees of Inisherin. I'll keep it short and sweet.
And I'll keep my number 3 short and sweet, because my number 3 is the Banshees of Inisherin.
Oh, there you go.
For the reasons you just listed, I completely agree. So rarely have I seen a film that daftly has these displays of dark humor while also having a very bleak worldview and overall message and tone in a beautiful place, beautiful scenery, mostly nice people. But it does not leave you feeling happy or satisfied. It's not necessarily completely depressing because of the humor that is sprinkled throughout, and the little nuggets of humanity and beauty throughout. But I remember leaving the theater thinking that wasn't what I expected. I think I like In Bruges more for repeat watches, but I am glad that I saw it. I've only seen it once, and I still remember it. The Banshees of Inisherin is a singular film going experience.
All right. Muha, number 3.
Number 3, Decision to Leave.
All right.
I wanted to see that. It didn't come in my area.
Decision to Leave is a new movie from the director of some of my favorite movies of all time, including the original Old Boy and Stoker. I haven't seen the Handmaiden yet. I need to buy a foreign or an all-region Blu-ray player so I can play the director's cut I have, because I refuse to watch the not director's cut. And this movie, I was so happy to get the chance to finally see another Park Chan-wook movie in theaters. It's been a very long time since I've gotten the chance to do that, and I'm really, really glad that the success of Parasite has given another Korean director, a shot at releasing something theatrically in the U.S. that was originally made completely for his home country's audience. So this isn't something that is Americanized in any way. This is pure Park Chan-wook, and he does so many interesting things creatively in this movie. The cinematography is incredible as usual, but the transitions that he's employed throughout his films that are just so interesting and artistic are kind of taken to an extreme here, and the way that it strings different images and scenes together is very fascinating. But the movie itself, where it feels like it is genuinely a part one and a part two, and the way that the characters change and shift throughout it and their motivations shift, and the symbolism of the mountains and the oceans that are employed throughout the film. There are just so many themes in this movie, all the way up to the title, the idea of a decision to leave, and what does that mean? And if you apply that concept, that title, to the different things throughout the movie that happen, the big decisions that different characters make, it almost becomes a unifying motif that gives you more to think about, as far as it goes as just a concept. Because making the decision to leave, just leave it all behind, to just give up on something and move on. There's been an interesting theme in certain things in my life where people have told me to let go of something that someone's done to me. And on one level, fuck you, you don't know how trauma works. On another level, there's a weird dichotomy where letting go of something and giving up can feel very similar. And the way it looks to people, that same action can look different to different people depending on their perception of that. And the question of what is that motivation? Why are you doing it? What are the reasons? What is the circumstance? What is driving your decision to leave? And this movie does a really interesting job, aside from being this very intricate, weird cat and mouse spider's web of weird, fucked up, like it is psychosexual without even really being sexual. It's almost like psychoromantic in a way. But I've never quite seen a movie like this before. Not like this. It has elements of noir in it, of course, but it takes the whole old school concept of noir and a femme fatale and twists it on its head into something completely new and existential. Just blown away by this movie. Just fantastic. Yeah, I don't think it's getting enough attention or credit. And I really, it's another one of those where it's, it's a thinking person's movie. It's a slow burn. It's a long movie. It's not the thing where you can leave it on in the background, especially because it's in Korean. So if you don't know Korean, you're gonna have a hard time. Yeah, it's being slept on. It's an incredible movie. Fucking 100%. If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
All right. We are going to take a hard pivot for my number 3. Because
Minions 2?
no, My number 3 is Weird, the Al Yankovic story.
Yo, I'm still sad I missed it. I know it's still up, but I still haven't watched it.
Fuck yes, Weird Al, Weird the Weird Al movie. Um, this is a movie that has so much fun with the biopic genre and really plays in the fact that you go into this movie knowing it's bullshit from the very beginning.
It's funny
And
as fuck.
with there, like, I don't want to give it away, but there is such a heel turn like towards the third act of this movie that is so baffling. And when I first saw it, I literally paused the movie because I was like, what what is happening right now? It's fucking amazing. And even some of the parts like what's Weird Al, there's one joke in the movie in particular that's really kind of underrated. I forget what song it is. Like it's like something involving like fat people that Weird Al did a long time ago, and they have
Fat.
That
yeah, I'm
No,
fat.
fat. It's just fat.
I was just called
It's
fat.
it's a take on Bad
Bad.
by Michael Jackson.
Okay, yeah. Well, they have a riff in this song because like his mom gets a little pudgier, and but while they're having this conversation with her and her dad at the dinner table, they're kind of coming to terms with each other without getting too much away. And there's it's like, and if you haven't noticed, I've put on some weight, and they're clearly just sitting on this buildup. And then like the Weird Al looks at him for a second and goes, "Dad, you didn't tell me you're part of a Mormon community." And then when he gets into this long dramatic backstory about like his his history and all that stuff, he pauses, he sits on it, and he goes like, "Mom, you've put on weight." And she goes, "Oh, we're well past that."
Read the room.
Like, go back to what you were doing. And Daniel Radcliffe, even though he sounds nothing like Weird Al, is such the perfect choice for this role because he is having so much fun with it. And just
I love it when Daniel Radcliffe is having fun. Like he's just
and like how he got the role is even funnier because apparently he was just on the Graham Norton show, and apparently at some point he did like this sang a song about the elements or something like that. And I guess Weird Al saw that clip, and then went like, "This guy gets it." And that's how he got the part.
Wait. Are you talking about Alphabet Aerobics by Black Alicious?
No.
Not Black Alicious.
So years ago, Tom Lehrer did a satire parody
it is Black
style
Alicious.
song called "The Elements," where he basically sang the elements to the same tune and instrumentation of Modern Major General from Pirates of Penzance.
Okay.
So he's saying that on Graham Norton show, and apparently that got Weird Al's attention.
Atamonian, no. It's so fast, I can't do it.
But Daniel Radcliffe has also rapped Black Alicious' Alphabet Aerobics, and I highly recommend to anybody who has not seen it look that up because that is
I have seen that clip too.
And it's kind of adorable just watching how much Daniel Radcliffe has clearly just loved the experience of working with Weird Al.
Apparently, he took one of the accordions as a souvenir.
That's awesome.
He didn't take it as a souvenir; he was gifted it.
Nice.
Because apparently, he said this when he was doing interviews for The Lost City, doing the press tour. They asked like, "So of all the movies you've ever done, what's like your favorite takeaway? What's the best thing you've ever gotten from a movie?" And Sandra Bullock goes into this long speech like, "Oh, it's the people you meet and the interactions you have and the relationships you build and yada yada yada." And Dan Radcliffe's like, "That's so much better than my answer. I was gonna say the accordion I got from Weird Al."
That's amazing.
And Sandra Bullock goes like, "Oh, that's awesome." But anyway, for a movie that just like it's I think it's easily one of the best satires of the year, if not the best satire of the year. And I laughed my ass off from beginning to end. I wish it was in theaters for longer than it was. I think it only had a few special screenings. But it absolutely deserves more attention than it got. I wish it was easier to stream on actual streaming services I can use without buying a Roku. But yeah, I loved it. I adored it. And that's one of the ways I will definitely not spoil any more jokes because you need to see them for themselves. The Al Yankovic story, amazing film. Top 3. All right, Sarah, number 2.
Marcel the Shell with shoes on. It is so sweet, and it's a movie that made me smile and made me tear up and cry, particularly with the Nana Connie uh, or Grandma Connie character. It's surprisingly smart about mortality and community and connection uh, and and family and how different worlds can interact with and affect one another and different perspectives on life experiences, and all of this from a movie with a little slug and sneakers. It and I kind of had to go out of my way a little bit to see it because it only had like one or two showtimes. Uh, I I heard it was good, and it is one of the most simply beautiful, heartwarming films I can remember seeing in recent years, and I just love this movie. Unlike my number three, this is a movie that will leave you feeling good and warm and fuzzy and hopeful, and with a renewed sense of the importance of connection.
All right. Move on. Number two.
Bones and all.
I
All
wanted
right.
to see it. I missed it.
Bones and all is something I'll remember for the rest of my life. It resonated with me in a way that is distinct to me. I don't think it's the second best movie that came out last year, but it's the one that hit me on that level. There is something about this movie that resonates so strongly with me, where it's for outsiders. It is very distinctly a movie for outsiders. But it's also a movie for people who are outsiders for specific reasons, whether it's trauma or bad things that they've done or things that they feel like other people may be safer without them or better off without them. Um, People who've been abandoned by their parents, things like that. And the fraught process of finding other people like you, where you discover that they may just be actual monsters and not your kind of contained monster. And the idea of finding someone who, even if you're having some issues with here and there, understand you. And what it's like to be seen and how important that is. And I've never had a movie make me cry like this. You see things like Grave of the Fireflies and everything, and you definitely cry profusely throughout that film. But this was something where I started crying when the credits rolled. I cried on the way to my car, and then I sat in my car and just couldn't stop. And I couldn't figure out exactly what it was. But I checked the times. Like, I was texting somebody, and I cried for half an hour. I sat in my car, and from the point the credits rolled until I stopped just weeping was half an hour. I've never had a movie hit me like that. It's not for everybody, but for the people that it's for, it made me feel seen in a way that I very rarely feel seen, especially by a movie. And the way it delivered its message on connection and romance, even, but just the depth of the loneliness and the importance and strength of finding a connection like that. Just the way that it employs its metaphors are extremely effective. And I've never seen anything quite like it. I've seen things do things similarly, but the way that it pulls off that extra layer gives it something special that I'm going to keep with me for a very long time. So number 2.
Okay. So my number 2 is also Marcel the Shell with Shoes On.
Yay!
But for different reason than yours. And mine, like, this also going to go deep personal for me. Because as you both know, and as many of our audience members know, my mom died last year. And this movie came out about 4 months after the fact. So it was very emotionally relevant to me at the time. And yeah, I ugly cried, I think, watching this, or even after the fact. But definitely its themes of being in that incredibly difficult position where you can see where things are going. You don't want to acknowledge where things are going, but you know it's going to happen. Even if it's in a very cutesy, well animated fashion that is very cute, is very charming, it is very lovable, and has interesting things to say about like online culture in particular. I thought were pretty poignant. I think the line that still struck me is like, "This is not quite the army I was hoping for." It's
Yes,
still, and I thought was pretty funny.
That line.
But that last sequence between her and Nana Connie, when she, yeah, kind of like, well, what if everything changes? Like, oh, it will. Like that scene, like, will still make me bawl now, because, like, yeah, that's the reality of it. Even like no matter what you do, no matter how innocent things seem, or like how you interpret life, things are going to change whether you like it or not, and you have to just kind of find a way to find beauty in that.
I saw this movie around the same time that my partner's grandmother was passing away, and I didn't know her for very long, but I felt very touched to be so readily accepted by her, and so I was sad when she was on her way out, and that this movie also struck a chord with its timeliness for that as well.
Yeah. So this is a movie I very much needed at the time. And it's a movie I like to revisit fairly often. Outside of all that, it is just an excellently crafted movie on something that has no right to be as good as it is, about a goddamn shell with tennis shoes.
Yes.
And it's a very poignant movie about not just like family and connection, but I think, as you guys both brought up, like that kind of isolation and that need to find ways of survival when you just don't have the support you need.
Way of kind of finding your way of navigating through your corner of life.
Well, it's not even just that; it's also just that the idea of being forced to grow up faster than you want to because you have to be the parent now. You're no longer allowed to like be a kid. You're no longer allowed to kind of indulge that part of yourself because you have things you need to do. You have people you need to take care of. Suddenly everything changes and you're desperately hoping it doesn't change more, but it does. And you have to find your way back from that. So I wasn't expecting that out of a claymation film about a goddamn shell with googly eyes, but yeah, it really struck a chord with me.
Yes.
So with that being said, I know we all have the same number one, so we might as well just talk about it. The number one for all of us is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Everywhere All at Once.
Yep. Cats is so good. We're bringing it back. 3 years later. Yeah.
I'm keeping that meme alive, baby. It's not going anywhere anytime soon.
This
Yeah, EEAAO.
And
Look,
the cynical
this
bastards that are
movie-
trying to say this movie's not good now because it's popular can go fuck themselves.
this movie is a goddamn masterpiece.
Mhm.
This was the movie I was most excited to see last year after seeing the trailer, and it surpassed any expectations that I had. It is funny, it is philosophical, it has amazing action, cinematography, effects, performances. It has everything, just like the title says. And I I literally and figuratively went out of my way to see this movie in April of last year before it came down to Monterey County. I had plans to see a comedy show in San Jose. I left early so I could see a showing of this movie in Santa Clara County because it hadn't come down to a theater near me yet. So I saw it in Santa Clara. I saw it in Monterey. I saw it in Pacific Grove. I saw this movie on Valentine's Day when it came of this year when it came back into theaters with my partner because they hadn't seen it yet, at least not in the theater. So that was my Valentine's Day gift. And I've seen it like 4 or 5 times, and I love it and notice different things each time. I saw it with different friends because I wanted to support this film because it is just that good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you
It was all right.
So why is it your number one?
No, I saw it in theaters 6
Cats.
times.
They said it.
During the main run. I saw it 6 times. I meant to go see it when it got re-released, but I just didn't get around to it. I had other stuff going on. But we go into this at length in our review for it, which I actually rewatched today. But the fact that it manages to be, if this was just a movie about depression and familial drama and intergenerational trauma and queerness and all the existential stuff, if it was just about that, it would still be an incredible movie. And if it was just a silly action comedy, it would still be one of the best silly action comedy movies I've ever seen.
Yes.
But somehow it manages to take these two things, which should be polar opposites, and makes them coexist to the point where neither of them would be nearly as good as they are without the other part. They enhance each other to such an incredible degree, and it's pulled off so deftly. And with the resources they had to do it, just my God. The guys
effects.
the stunt coordinators, who are, I don't know if you know this, the main fight choreographers, the stunt guys, are the guys who fight her with the butt plugs.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I heard
those two guys are
that,
the main fight coordinators for the film. That's why they have like the centerpiece fight sequence with her, where they just fight her with fucking stuff shoved up their asses. Which I still remember, Michael, when we first saw it and it was in the big IMAX, and when that moment came up, just everyone in the audience was fucking dying. Like everyone just losing it. It was so good. And then like an hour later, we were all just fucking crying. Like,
yeah,
unbelievable how they pulled off just how potent their execution was on all fronts. And from what this does with, like, you know, immigrant stories to all the things that I've mentioned so far with the drama side of things, but also this is another movie that made me feel seen in a way that I don't feel like I've been seen before by a film. The way that this movie treats uh, suicidal ideation, um, and how much, you know, you're just begging your parents to understand that you are suffering. Like, you just want them to know and just comfort you in that way that they're fucking supposed to, but they just don't get it. And they don't understand that they don't have to get it to just be there for you. And actually, when I first saw this movie, I got in a full-blown fight with my dad a couple months ago about this movie.
Really?
Because he didn't understand it, and I was trying to explain it to him, and he just kept going, like, he just kept going back to like how he felt about it, and I was just kept trying to explain to him why it meant something to me, and I just wanted him to understand why it meant something to me and why I needed him to see why it mattered to me. And he just kept coming back to like, oh, but I've seen other things. Like, I'm like, it was such a weirdly apt argument to have. But when I took my family to see it, like, they didn't really like it. They didn't connect to it. They didn't understand why I thought it was such a big deal. And they thought all the crazy noise of the first half was like too much, and they would have walked out if I hadn't pushed them to come see it with me. And oh man, the fact that the final big fight sequence in the movie is the daughter fighting so hard to die, and the mother fighting so hard to stop her. That's the whole setting of the final fight in the film. And it's such an interesting subversion of what you normally see out of something like that. And the poignancy of that, the point where she's given up so much at that point that she doesn't even care if her mom's with her or not. She's going to fucking do it. And her mom just like tries to bring her back with love, even if she has to like fight her for it. It's the whirlwind of visuals and music and emotions that you experience that lead up to that culmination, and how it works out during that moment where it's switching between all these different sequences. And there's never been any movie like this.
No.
And I doubt there ever will quite will be again. It is a very unique, perfect storm of elements. The writers wrote this movie specifically for Michelle Yeoh. And they said, like, they were so relieved when she accepted, because if she hadn't, they would have to rewrite half the script because there was no way anyone else would be able to do it. And Michelle Yeoh herself said, you know, this is the script she's been waiting for her whole life, because it would allow her to show her versatility as an actress. And
made her feel seen.
Yeah. And the Daniels, these two fucking crazy, weird ass directors that I have been following since even before Swiss Army Man, when they were just making weird ass fucking online videos. But of course, our reaction to Swiss Army Man, that review is still on the channel. It's one of the earlier ones we did. But seeing these guys come this far and make something that is this incredibly complex and emotionally poignant, to the point where, you know, who would have thought? Like, at this point, it feels redundant to talk about, because if we'd done this video like, you know, 4 months ago, it would be a different story. But at this point, everyone knows this thing fucking swept the Oscars.
Yeah.
who would have expected that this would have swept the Oscars? It's
I was
not
rooting
Oscar
for
bait.
it to do that all year.
Yeah.
Sure, but you don't see a movie where like, Jenny Slate uses a Pomeranian as nunchucks and like dudes fight Michelle Yeoh in an office with like just stuff stuck up their asses visibly.
Yeah.
And
somebody humps a lamp.
yeah, of course. Like you don't see that, like action movies don't generally get Best Picture noms in the first place, much less win them.
It's so
And
much
much
more
less,
than an action movie, though. At its core, it's
I
a
know.
family drama.
Well, that's my whole point. That's what I'm saying, though. Like, you don't normally get something like this having a chance with something like the Oscars. It's not your standard Oscar bait, but somehow in the middle of being this weird ass movie with butt plugs and hot dog fingers, the core emotional themes resonated so strongly and were executed so well and hit all the generation's issues like that it swept the fucking Oscars. And I would have hoped for it if I thought it was possible, but I don't think anyone actually expected it to happen.
Yeah.
So the fact that it did, holy shit, I'm so glad this movie is getting the recognition that it deserves. I'm so glad that it is, because I remember when it first came out and we were talking about it, we got to see the early release.
Yeah, we did.
And then it had the limited release, and it wasn't in that many theaters once it actually came out. And it actually survived through word of mouth. And it ended up staying in theaters for months.
Yep.
And we didn't expect that because we were like, this is just going to be like some crazy A24 movie that like we don't expect everybody to appreciate, but it just kept on gaining momentum and everyone kept talking about it. And now it fucking won what, like 7 Oscars?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, 7 out of 11. Picture, screenplay, director, supporting actor, supporting actress, and best lead actress and editing.
So what a fucking success story from the guys who made the farting Daniel Radcliffe corpse movie.
Yeah, right.
What a fucking dream to have these 2 weird ass dudes apparently turn out to not only be geniuses, but also really fucking empathetic and sweet.
Yeah.
And be able to put this absolute anomalous freak of a movie on display and have the whole world fucking love it. I'm so glad something like this is getting so much attention and enjoying this level of success and recognition. And I'm sure that not everyone will connect to it in the same ways that we do. I'm sure that not everyone will get the level of, feeling seen from its portrayal of depression and suicidal ideation as, as I did necessarily. But I'm really glad that it exists for people like me to feel seen. And I'm glad that it's being widely adopted and successful enough so that the people that made it are being rewarded and recognized for just making a fine fucking movie. And one of the greatest of all time. Yeah. No question.
The modern day
it's not just
masterpiece.
Yeah. It's not just a really great movie for this year. It is one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Same.
And a lot of people I've spoken to have agreed to that. It's truly special, and I can't imagine anything else taking number 1 for this year.
Well, I have to fucking top that.
No, you don't. You can be like, what Mahan said. Good night, everybody.
No, as far as a film and stuff goes, there's really nothing I can add to that. That was a perfect synopsis. So, what I will just instead add is my own personal context to it. Because it's a movie that did also speak very deeply to me, not just in the same suicidal ideation, but again, going back to what I was talking about the last entry, this movie came out a month after my mom died. So we saw it. I very distinctly remember this night because it was definitely one for the books that I remember. Was driving with you to go see this at like a later night showing, and I distinctly remember. I think it was around the time I was just. laughing and crying at the fucking googly-eyed rocks. And I turned to you at some point. I forget exactly which scene. And you and I were both just weeping. And it was a weird moment of connection. And the entire drive home, we sat there flabbergasted because we were just thinking we both had the exact same thoughts. Like, did this do the same fucking thing the 9 Days did? And it did. And the interesting thing about this for me is that my mom looked a lot like Jamie Lee Curtis, especially in this movie. And since it's about like relationships with your mom and vice versa, and feeling understood and seen by your parent in a way that you've been begging them to for your basically like since you could like rationally conjure it, really. To have that be the central theme and have that be explored in that way, it was the first time I felt really connected to her since she passed. And every time I watch it now, I still feel that connection. Which is why Mother's Day last year, I kind of made it. I saw this movie 9 times in theaters. For context.
My mom thought I was weird when I told her that I'd seen it 4 times.
Michael, you saw us in theaters almost as many times as I saw Cats.
Correct. Yes. But anyway, but like it was one anyone made a point to go see on Mother's Day because again, I just wanted to feel that connection. I wanted to feel that catharsis. Like again, that fucking scene when they're in the parking lot towards the end, like still makes me bawl every time I watch it. It's I don't think my mother would have liked it, to be honest.
The irony of it all.
My mom hasn't seen this yet. She's not gonna like it.
And I can tell right out the bat what she would say is like, "Oh, it's too loud, it's too weird. I don't know, like I don't know what's happening." But I was like, but that's okay. Yeah. That's whatever. That's whatever. It's not a big deal. But the point is just that again, this was the movie I needed when it came out. And it's quickly become one of my all-time favorites. And I do agree that it's one of the best movies of all time. And I am extremely grateful for it. And I think it's the most I can add without being redundant.
Mm-hmm.
I could keep talking about it, about how I saw it with a coworker, how I saw it with a friend, how I saw it by myself twice, and how if you blink for a second, you'll miss something about how the scene with the googly-eyed rocks is a perfectly placed, quiet moment in a kinetic, moving film. It's incredible that we got this movie when we did, how we did with the cast we did. It is just perfect.
All right. So I think we can wrap it up there because it is late and I think we're all tired. But thank you so much for being patient with us, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this list as much as we enjoyed these movies. We will try not to wait this fucking long to get these out next year. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you.